Ah, I used your identity to get breast implants, my twin sister bragged at dinner, smirking like she'd just won the lottery. What are you going to do about it? Mom laughed from across the table, that condescending little chuckle I'd heard my entire life. She can't even afford a lawyer. The room went quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then I picked up my phone, typed a single message to my team, and hit send. Initiate the fraud investigation. Mom's laugh died in her throat when she saw the flash of headlights through the dining room window, then another, and another. My sister's smirk disappeared completely when the first FBI vehicle pulled into the driveway. My name is Rachel Morrison. I'm 31 years old and I've been a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation for the past 6 years. I specialize in financial crimes and identity fraud. And my twin sister just committed both, at my own dinner table. While my mother cheered her on. Let me back up. Growing up as an identical twin sounds magical to people who've never lived it. They imagine matching outfits, secret languages, an unbreakable bond. They don't imagine competition, comparison, and a lifetime of being treated like you're half of a whole instead of a complete person. Rebecca and I were born 11 minutes apart. She came first, and according to family legend, she's been trying to stay ahead ever since. We looked identical. Same dark hair, same green eyes, same height, same build. But somewhere around middle school our personalities split in completely opposite directions. Rebecca wanted attention, validation. She thrived on being looked at, admired, desired. She was the girl who always had a boyfriend, who spent hours on her appearance, who measured her worth in likes and compliments. I wanted competence, achievement. I studied hard, joined debate team, volunteered with legal aid programs in high school. I measured my worth in what I could do, not how I looked doing it. Our parents noticed the difference, and they had opinions about it. Mom was a former beauty pageant contestant who never quite made it to the big leagues. She saw Rebecca as her second chance, a prettier, younger version of herself. She encouraged Rebecca's obsession with appearance, funded her expensive tastes, praised her for landing attractive boyfriends. Me? I was too serious, too masculine, too focused on things that don't matter. When I got accepted to Georgetown University on a full academic scholarship, Mom's exact words were, "That's nice, honey." Rebecca just got asked to prom by the quarterback. When I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in criminology, Mom posted exactly one photo on social media. When Rebecca got engaged 3 months later to a guy she'd known for 6 weeks, Mom threw a massive engagement party and posted about it for days. The engagement fell apart within a year. So did the next one. And the one after that, Rebecca had a pattern. She'd meet a guy, fall hard, get engaged within months, then the relationship would implode spectacularly. Usually because she'd cheated, or he'd discovered she was lying about something significant, or the financial situation was completely unsustainable. By the time we were 28, Rebecca had been engaged 4 times, married 0. I've been in a serious relationship with Marcus, a fellow FBI agent, for 3 years. We were talking about marriage, but we were also both focused on our careers. We wanted to wait until the timing was right. Mom's opinion? You're going to lose him if you don't lock him down. Men don't wait forever. Look at Rebecca. She's had so many men want to marry her. I stopped trying to explain that being proposed to by men you barely know isn't actually an accomplishment. Here's what Mom didn't know. I was damn good at my job. I'd closed major cases involving healthcare fraud, tax evasion, and identity theft rings that had stolen millions. I'd received commendations. I was being considered for a promotion to supervisory special agent, but I didn't advertise my work. Partly because of the nature of the job, but mostly because I'd learned early that my achievements made my family uncomfortable, Rebecca especially. She'd stopped asking about my work years ago. When people asked what I did, she'd wave her hand dismissively and say, "Oh, Rachel works for the government, super boring desk job." I let her think that. It was easier. The trouble started about 8 months ago. Rebecca called me one evening, unusually friendly. She wanted to reconnect, she said. "We're twins. We should be closer." I was cautious but hopeful. Maybe she was maturing. Maybe things could actually improve between us. We started having dinner once a month. She'd ask about my life, seemed genuinely interested. She even apologized for being distant over the years. I softened. Maybe I'd been too harsh. Maybe she really was changing. Then 3 months ago, she asked me for a favor. "I need to use your address for something," she said casually over coffee. My credit is kind of messed up from a medical bill issue, and I'm trying to refinance some stuff. If I use your address as a secondary residence, it might help. Every alarm bell in my professional brain went off immediately. Rebecca, that's fraud. I can't do that. She rolled her eyes. It's not fraud, Rachel. God, you're so dramatic. It's just a formality. I'm not actually doing anything illegal. Using someone else's address to obtain financial benefits under false pretenses is literally fraud. You know what? Forget it. Forget, I asked. She stood up, grabbed her purse. I should have known you'd make everything difficult. She left before I could respond. I didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. Then she texted like nothing had happened, asking if I wanted to come to a family dinner at Mom's house. I should have known something was wrong. Rebecca never invited me to family dinners anymore. The dinner was last Friday night. I arrived at Mom's house around 6:30. Dad was there too, quieter as always, letting Mom dominate every conversation. Rebecca was already seated, looking particularly pleased with herself. We made it through the appetizers with normal small talk. Mom asked about Marcus, made a pointed comment about us still not being engaged after 3 years. Rebecca smirked but didn't pile on, which should have been my second warning sign. Then we sat down for the main course. Mom served her famous pot roast. Dad poured wine. Rebecca kept checking her phone and smiling at something. So, Mom said, turning to Rebecca with obvious pride, "Show Rachel your big news." Rebecca put down her fork, straightened her shoulders, and thrust her chest forward dramatically. It took me a second to register what was different. Then I saw them. Breast implants. Significant ones. "What do you think?" Rebecca asked, that familiar smugness creeping into her voice. "I finally did it. I've wanted them for years." I blinked. "Okay, congratulations, I guess." "They look amazing on her," Mom gushed. "She looks like a movie star." "You should consider it too, Rachel. It would really help balance your frame." I bit back 12 different responses and just nodded. "I'm fine with my frame, thanks." Rebecca was still smiling that weird, knowing smile. She leaned back in her chair, picked up her wine glass, and said the words that changed everything. "You know what's funny? My insurance wouldn't cover them because they're cosmetic. And I couldn't get approved for medical financing because of my credit." My stomach dropped. I already knew where this was going, so I had to get creative. She took a sip of wine, maintaining eye contact with me the entire time. "I used your identity." The words hung in the air like a grenade. "Excuse me?" My voice came out flat, dangerous. "Oh, don't be so dramatic." Rebecca waved her hand dismissively. "I used your identity to get approved for the medical financing. Your credit is perfect, obviously. It was super easy. They barely even verified anything." I stared at her. At Mom. At Dad, who was suddenly very interested in his pot roast. "You committed identity fraud," I said slowly. "Against me." "Your sister," Rebecca laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God, Rachel, it's not that serious. It's not like I'm going to miss the payments. Calm down. You used my social security number? My personal information? Well, yeah. How else was I supposed to do it?" She rolled her eyes. "And before you freak out, I'm making the payments." "You won't even notice." My hands were shaking. I set down my fork very carefully. "Rebecca, that's a federal crime. Multiple federal crimes, actually. Identity theft, fraud, false representation. Oh, here we go." Rebecca looked at Mom with exaggerated exasperation. "Miss FBI's agent has to make everything into a crime drama." "Wait, what did you just say?" Rebecca's smile widened. "I know about your little job, Rachel. I've known for months. I'm not stupid." My mind raced. I'd never told her. Never told any of them the specifics of my position. "I did some digging," Rebecca continued, clearly enjoying herself. "Found your real LinkedIn profile, the one you don't think family can see. Read some articles about cases you worked on. You're apparently quite the big deal in white-collar crime." She leaned forward. "Which is exactly why I knew you'd never actually do anything about this. You're not going to turn in your own twin sister over some silly medical financing. Think about how that would look for your precious career." Mom jumped in. "Rebecca's right, honey. You can't seriously be considering making this into some kind of legal issue. She's family, she's your sister. Your twin, who committed identity fraud against me," I repeated, my voice absolutely steady now. "Oh, for heaven's sake." Mom's tone turned sharp. What are you going to do about it, Rachel? Call the police on your own family? Take her to court? You can't even afford a lawyer on a government salary. That got a laugh from Rebecca. She can't even afford a lawyer. That's good, Mom. Dad finally spoke up, quiet as always. Maybe we should all calm down, stay out of this, Phil, Mom snapped. Then back to me. Rachel, you need to put this in perspective. Rebecca made a choice that, technically, yes, involved using your information, but she's family. You don't destroy family over something this small. I looked at Rebecca at her triumphant, smug expression. At Mom, so ready to defend her favorite daughter. At Dad, who couldn't even make eye contact with me. This wasn't just about the implants. This wasn't even just about the fraud. This was about a lifetime of being the less important twin. The less loved daughter. The one who achieved things that didn't matter because they weren't pretty or attention-grabbing enough. This was about finally having something that was mine, my career, my reputation, my identity, and having Rebecca steal it anyway. Because she could. Because she thought I wouldn't fight back. Because Mom would protect her. Rebecca was still talking. Seriously, Rachel, just let it go. I'm making the payments. Your credit won't be affected. Nobody has to know. We can all just move on and... I pulled out my phone. What are you doing? Rebecca's voice had a slight edge now. I opened my secure communication app. The one connected directly to my team. Rachel, put the phone down. Mom's voice was sharp now, worried. I typed quickly. Initiate the fraud investigation. Suspect, Rebecca Morrison, multiple charges, medical fraud, identity theft. Need immediate response team to current location. I hit send. I looked up at Rebecca. Her face had gone pale. What did you just do? My job, I said simply. Mom's eyes widened. Rachel Marie Morrison, you did not just... Headlights flashed through the dining room window. Then more. Then more. Rebecca stood up so fast her chair fell backward. No, you didn't. You're bluffing. The sound of car doors opening, closing, footsteps on the driveway. You psycho, Rebecca's voice cracked. You called the actual FBI, on your own sister. Mom was standing too now, panicked. Phil, do something. Rachel, stop this right now. The doorbell rang. I walked to the front door, completely calm. Behind me, Rebecca was crying. Mom was yelling. Dad was trying to say something about everyone being rational. I opened the door. Special Agent Marcus Chun stood there, my boyfriend, my colleague, my friend. Behind him, 3 other agents I knew well, all of them in full FBI gear, badges visible. Marcus looked at me, professional but concerned. Agent Morrison. We received your alert. Come in, I said, stepping aside. The suspect is in the dining room. Rebecca Morrison. She's confessed to identity theft and medical fraud. Multiple witnesses present. Rebecca appeared in the hallway, makeup running from crying. Rachel, please don't do this. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry. Ma'am, Marcus addressed her, his voice completely professional. I need you to remain calm. We have some questions about financial documents filed under the identity of Rachel Morrison. This is insane. Mom pushed past Rebecca. You can't just storm into my house and, ma'am, we're federal agents executing an investigation into identity fraud, another agent said calmly. We have every right to be here. This is a federal offense. I watched Rebecca's face cycle through emotions. Disbelief, anger, panic, and finally, terror. Real terror. Because she was finally understanding. This wasn't a family squabble. This wasn't something Mom could smooth over or manipulate away. This was federal law enforcement. And I wasn't backing down. The next hour unfolded like a scene from one of those crime dramas Rebecca used to mock me for watching. Special Agent Karen Williams, one of my team members specializing in financial crimes, took the lead on questioning Rebecca. Marcus stepped back to avoid any appearance of conflict of interest, though his presence alone sent a clear message to my family. This was real, this was official, and I wasn't acting alone or impulsively. They sat Rebecca down at Mom's dining table, the pot roast getting cold between the plates. Agent Williams read her rights. The whole Miranda warning, word for word. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, ... Single quotes. Rebecca's hands were shaking. She kept looking at me like I was going to suddenly laugh and say it was all a prank. I didn't. Mom tried to interrupt 3 times. Each time, she was professionally but firmly told to step back and remain quiet, or she'd be asked to leave her own dining room. Dad just sat there looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Ms. Morrison, Agent Williams began, pulling out a tablet. We need to understand exactly what information you used and where. Did you use your sister's social security number? Rebecca's voice came out as a whisper. Yes. Date of birth? Yes. Address? Yes. Did you forge her signature on any documents? Silence. Miss Morrison, did you forge your sister's signature? I signed her name. On the financing application. Agent Williams made notes. And how did you obtain her social security number? Rebecca's eyes darted to me. I've always known it. We're twins. We've had access to each other's documents since we were kids. But you specifically used it for fraudulent purposes within the last 3 months? I didn't think it was fraudulent, Rebecca said weakly. I'm making the payments. I wasn't trying to hurt her. Identity theft doesn't require proof of intent to harm. Agent Williams said matter-of-factly. It requires proof that you knowingly used someone else's identity without permission to obtain goods or services. Did you have Rachel Morrison's permission to use her identity? No, but yes or no? Please, no. Did you disclose to the medical financing company that you were not actually Rachel Morrison? No. Did you provide your own identification at any point? Or did you represent yourself as your sister throughout the entire process? Rebecca's face crumbled. I represented myself as Rachel. Mom couldn't hold back anymore. This is ridiculous. She's her twin sister. They're identical. How is she supposed to prove which one is which anyway? This is entrapment. Agent Williams turned to Mom with impressive patience. Ma'am, that's not what entrapment means. And identity theft between family members is actually quite common and still very much illegal. I want to call a liar, Rebecca suddenly said. That's absolutely your right, Agent Williams nodded. Would you like to do that now? Rebecca grabbed her phone with trembling hands. She scrolled through her contacts, pressed call, waited. Hi, yes, I need a lawyer. Like right now. The FBI's at my mom's house and they're saying I committed identity fraud and what? How much? I don't have that kind of money right now. Can't you just hello? Hello? She pulled the phone away from her ear, staring at it in disbelief. He hung up. Criminal defense retainers are typically several $1,000s up front, I said quietly. It was the first time I'd spoken since the agents arrived. Most attorneys won't take a federal case without significant payment first. Rebecca's head snapped toward me. You're enjoying this. I'm not, I said honestly. But I'm not stopping it either. Mom stepped forward. Rachel, please. She's your sister. She made a mistake. A stupid mistake, yes, but you can fix this. You can call this off right now. Tell them you're not pressing charges. Agent Williams interjected. Actually, ma'am, that's not how federal crimes work. The United States government presses charges in federal cases, not the individual victim. Agent Morrison reported a crime. We're obligated to investigate, then tell them there's no crime. Mom's voice was getting shrill. Tell them you gave her permission. I looked at my mother, really looked at her. At the desperation in her eyes, the panic that her golden child might actually face consequences for once. I'm not going to lie to federal agents, Mom. That would make me an accessory after the fact and end my career. Your career, Mom spat. That's all you care about, isn't it? Your precious career, not your family, not your sister, just yourself and your ambitions. The words should have hurt. Maybe a few years ago they would have. Now they just sounded hollow. My career is built on integrity, I said calmly. Rebecca stole my identity. She committed fraud. She did it deliberately, knowing it was wrong, and then she bragged about it. Those are facts. They don't change because we share DNA. You self-righteous mom started. Ma'am, Marcus said, his voice carrying authority now. I'm going to need you to step outside if you can't remain civil. Mom's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that in her own home. Agent Williams turned back to Rebecca. Ms. Morrison, we're going to need you to come to the field office to make a formal statement. You're not under arrest at this moment, but I strongly advise you to obtain legal counsel before that interview. When? Rebecca's voice was small. Monday morning, 9 a.m., Agent Williams handed her a card. This address. If you fail to appear, a warrant will be issued. Rebecca took the card with a shaking hand. Agent Williams looked at me. Agent Morrison, we'll need your statement as well, but given your involvement, we'll handle that separately. Can you come in tomorrow? Yes, ma'am. Good. She closed her tablet, looked around the dining room one more time. Folks, I recommend you use this weekend to secure legal representation. Federal identity theft charges carry serious penalties. The court doesn't take these cases lightly. The agents filed out. Marcus was the last to leave. He paused at the door, caught my eye, gave me the smallest nod. A silent question. Are you okay? I nodded back. I'm fine. Then they were gone, and I was alone with my family in the sudden, crushing silence. Rebecca broke first. I can't believe you, she whispered. I can't believe you actually did that. You didn't give me a choice. I gave you every choice. Her voice rose. I told you what happened. I was honest. And you immediately called the FBI like some kind of robot. You bragged about committing a felony, I corrected. You didn't confess. You gloated. There's a difference. Mom moved between us. Both of you. Stop. Rachel, you need to fix this. Call them back. Tell them you misunderstood. Tell them it was a family misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Mom. Rebecca committed identity fraud. She used my social security number, my address, my signature, for breast implants, Mom shouted. Breast implants, Rachel, not drugs, not weapons, not anything actually dangerous. You're destroying her life over cosmetic surgery. I'm holding her accountable for a federal crime, I said firmly. The type of fraud doesn't matter. The law is the law. The law, Mom, repeated mockingly. You and your damn laws. You know what your problem is? You've never understood that family comes first. Before rules, before careers, before everything. Family protects family. Family doesn't steal from family, I shot back. Family doesn't commit crimes against family and then laugh about it. Rebecca was crying again, but this time it was different. Angry tears. You're going to send me to prison, your own twin sister. For something that doesn't even hurt you. It does hurt me, I said quietly. My credit could be affected. My security clearance could be jeopardized. My identity has been compromised. But even if none of that were true, it would still be a crime. God, listen to yourself, Rebecca screamed. You sound like a textbook. Like a robot. Do you even have feelings, or did the FBI train them out of you? I felt something crack inside my chest, but I kept my voice level. I have feelings, Rebecca. I'm hurt. I'm angry. I'm disappointed. But I also have principles. And one of those principles is that nobody gets to break the law just because we're related. Dad finally spoke. His voice rough. Rachel, honey, isn't there some kind of I don't know, diversion program? Something that wouldn't result in charges? I looked at him. This man who'd spent 30 years letting Mom steamroll over everything. Who'd never once stood up for me when Rebecca got preferential treatment. For a first-time offender with minor theft, maybe, I said. But Rebecca used my identity to fraudulently obtain thousands of dollars in medical financing. That's not minor. And honestly, Dad, the decision isn't up to me anymore. The investigation is open. The U.S. Attorney's Office will decide whether to prosecute. You could tell them not to, Mom insisted. You could refuse to cooperate. I'm a federal agent, Mom. I took an oath. Refusing to cooperate with the federal investigation would end my career and possibly result in obstruction charges against me. Then you've chosen, Rebecca said coldly. You've chosen your career over me. The words hung there, heavy and final. No, I said slowly. You chose to commit a crime. You chose to use my identity. You chose to brag about it. I'm just choosing not to cover for you. I left Mom's house 20 minutes later. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody hugged me goodbye. Nobody said they understood. I stood in the doorway with her arms around Rebecca, glaring at me like I was a stranger, like I was the villain in this story. Dad walked me to my car, his hands in his pockets. You know your mother's going to blame you for this, he said quietly. I know. Rebecca might go to prison. I know. He was quiet for a long moment. Are you sure about this, sweetheart? Once you go down this road, there's no coming back from it. I looked at my father, really looked at him. At the weariness in his face, the resignation in his shoulders. Dad, when was the last time Rebecca faced real consequences for anything? He didn't answer. The engagement to that married man? Mom paid for the hotel when his wife kicked him out. The credit card fraud at the department store? You paid a restitution. The DUI 3 years ago? Mom called in favors to get it reduced to reckless driving. When does it stop? She's your sister, Dad said helplessly. And she stole my identity, I replied. She committed a federal crime against me and laughed about it. If I let this go, what's next? What does she do next time she wants something and doesn't want to pay for it herself? Dad had no answer for that. I got in my car. He stood in the driveway looking older than his 58 years. I love you, Dad, I said through the window, but I'm not setting myself on fire to keep Rebecca warm anymore. I drove away. In my rearview mirror, I could see him still standing there watching me go. Marcus called me an hour later after I'd gotten home to my apartment. Hey, his voice was gentle. How are you holding up? I'm fine, I said automatically. Rachel, I sighed. I don't know. I did the right thing. I know I did the right thing. You absolutely did. Then why do I feel like the bad guy? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Because your family is trying to make you the bad guy. Because it's easier for them to blame you than to hold Rebecca accountable. But you're not wrong, Rach. You know you're not. I sat down on my couch, suddenly exhausted. My mom looked at me like I was a monster. Your mom has enabled Rebecca for 31 years. She's not going to start seeing clearly now. Rebecca said I'm choosing my career over her. No, Marcus said firmly. You're choosing integrity over enabling a criminal. There's a difference. I closed my eyes. This is going to get worse before it gets better, isn't it? Probably, he admitted. Federal cases take time. Rebecca's going to have to face an arraignment if the U.S. attorney decides to prosecute, which they probably will. Your family is going to pressure you. It's going to be hard. Tell me I did the right thing. You did the right thing, Marcus said immediately. You did exactly what any ethical federal agent would do. What you had to do. Your oath matters, Rachel. Your integrity matters. And anyone who asks you to compromise that doesn't deserve your loyalty. I felt tears prick at my eyes. Thank you. Always. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. We hung up. I sat in my quiet apartment, looking at my phone. No messages from Rebecca. No messages from Mom. Nothing from Dad. Just silence. I thought about texting Rebecca. Apologizing. Explaining. Something. Then I remembered her face at dinner. That smug, triumphant expression as she announced what she'd done. The casual cruelty of it. The absolute certainty that I wouldn't fight back because I never had before. I put my phone down. I'd done the right thing. Now I had to see it through. The weekend was strange. Quiet. I kept my phone on, half expecting it to ring. Half expecting some kind of emergency family meeting demand. Nothing came. I went to the gym. Did laundry. Prepared my statement for the field office. Marcus came over Saturday night with Thai food and a movie, and we didn't talk about Rebecca or the case at all. Sunday afternoon, my phone finally rang. Unknown number, I answered cautiously. Hello? Rachel, it's Aunt Linda, my mother's sister. I hadn't spoken to her in months. Hi, Aunt Linda. Your mother called me, she said without preamble. Told me what happened. I had to hear this from you directly. Did you really call the FBI on Rebecca? Here we go, I thought. Rebecca committed identity fraud against me. I reported it. Yes, identity fraud, Aunt Linda repeated slowly. She used your information for medical financing. Without my permission, yes. That's identity theft and fraud. And you had her interrogated by federal agents. They questioned her. Yes. That's standard procedure. Aunt Linda was quiet for a beat. Then, good. I blinked. What? I said good. About damn time someone held that girl accountable. I almost dropped my phone. Aunt Linda, your mother has been calling everyone in the family. Aunt Linda continued, her voice sharp, telling her version of events. Painting you as some kind of heartless career woman who's destroying her poor sister over nothing. Looking for allies. People to pressure you to drop this. I can't drop it, I said. It's not up to me anymore, I know that. And I told your mother exactly that when she called me. Told her Rebecca made her bed, now she can lie in it. I sat down slowly. You did? Rachel, honey, I love your mother. She's my sister. But she has spoiled Rebecca rotten since the day you girls were born, and everyone in this family knows it. Rebecca has been getting away with murder for years because your mother bails her out of everything. Mom thinks I'm choosing my career over family, Aunt Linda snorted. Your mother thinks family means protecting Rebecca from consequences. That's not what family means. Family means holding each other to standards. You did the right thing. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just ... Be prepared. Your mother is not going to let this go quietly. She's going to make this very difficult for you. I know. And Rachel? I'm proud of you. Your father's proud of you too, even if he's too scared of your mother to say it out loud. We talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. One ally. At least I had one ally. Monday morning came faster than I wanted. I arrived at the field office at 8:30. Agent Williams met me in the conference room with 2 other agents I didn't know as well. Protocol for interviewing an agent involved in a case as both investigator and victim. They took my statement methodically. Every detail. When I'd first noticed Rebecca's interest in my information, the dinner conversation, the exact words she'd used, the documentation I could provide. Do you have any proof of identity documents that were yours that she might have accessed? One agent asked. We grew up in the same house until college, I said. She would have had access to birth certificates, social security cards, all of it. My parents kept everything in a file cabinet in the home office, and you never gave her explicit permission to use your identity? Never. Not for this, not for anything. They took notes, asked follow-up questions, treated me like any other victim, which I appreciated. At 9 a.m. exactly, the receptionist called. Rebecca had arrived. With Mom, Ems. Morrison Sr. insisted on accompanying her daughter, the receptionist said over the phone. Says she's here for moral support. Agent Williams raised an eyebrow at me. I shrugged. Fine. But she's not sitting in on the interview. Mom made a scene about it, apparently. I could hear raised voices from down the hall. But protocol was protocol. Rebecca went into an interview room alone. Mom was directed to the waiting area, where she sat rigid and furious, glaring at anyone who passed. The interview took 3 hours. I didn't sit in on it. Stayed in my office, trying to focus on other case files, trying not to think about what Rebecca was saying in that room. Around noon, Agent Williams knocked on my door. We're done, she said. Rebecca gave a full statement, admitted to everything. She tried to minimize it, claim it wasn't a big deal, but legally speaking, she confessed to identity theft and wire fraud. Wire fraud? The financing application was submitted electronically across state lines. That makes it wire fraud under federal statute. My stomach dropped. Wire fraud was serious. Much more serious than simple identity theft. What happens now? We compile the evidence, write up the report, send it to the U.S. Attorney's Office. They'll decide whether to prosecute, but honestly, Rachel, with a full confession and clear evidence, they're gonna prosecute. How long? Could be a few weeks to a few months before formal charges are filed. Then arraignment, possibly a grand jury indictment, trial prep. If Rebecca is smart, her attorney will negotiate a plea deal, and if she's not smart, then it goes to trial and she'll lose. The evidence is overwhelming. I nodded slowly. Agent Williams studied me. Are you okay? I don't know, I admitted. I know this is the right thing, but it doesn't feel good. It's not supposed to feel good, she said gently. She's your sister, but you did your job, and you did it correctly. Don't let anyone make you doubt that. After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're dead to me. I hope you're happy. Rebecca, then another from Mom. I will never forgive you for this. You've destroyed this family. And finally, surprisingly, one from Dad. I don't understand your choice, but I know you believe you're doing the right thing. I love you. 3 messages. 3 very different reactions. I saved Dad's message and deleted the other 2. Then I got back to work. The next 6 weeks were some of the strangest of my life. I went to work every day, handled my cases, maintained my professional demeanor. On the surface, everything looked normal. Underneath, my family was imploding. Mom started a campaign. That's the only way to describe it. A full-scale pressure campaign designed to make me drop the case, recant my statement, somehow make this all go away. She called me 17 times in the first week alone. I answered twice. Both conversations ended with her screaming and me hanging up. The messages were worse. You're tearing this family apart. Rebecca is having panic attacks because of you. How can you sleep at night knowing you've done this to your own twin? Your father is devastated. You've broken his heart. I blocked her number after message number 34. She started emailing instead. Then she recruited extended family. Cousins I barely knew suddenly had opinions about my cruelty. An uncle I hadn't seen in 5 years called to lecture me about forgiveness. My maternal grandmother, 92 years old and sharp as a tack, a voicemail telling me I was too rigid and needed to learn flexibility. Only Aunt Linda held firm. She called once a week to check on me, to remind me I wasn't crazy, to tell me stories about all the times Rebecca had manipulated situations and gotten away with it. When you two were 16, she told me during one call, Rebecca stole $300 from your mother's purse and blamed it on you. Do you remember? I did. Vaguely. Mom had been furious with me for weeks until the money mysteriously reappeared in Rebecca's room. Even then, Mom had said I must have planted it there out of jealousy. Your mother has never held Rebecca accountable for anything, Aunt Linda said firmly. Never. And now that someone finally is, she doesn't know how to handle it. Marcus was my other anchor. He came over most evenings, brought dinner, let me vent. He never once suggested I was wrong or should reconsider. They're gaslighting you, he said one night over Chinese takeout. Classic manipulation tactic. Making you question your own judgment, making you feel guilty for enforcing consequences that Rebecca earned herself. It's working a little, I admitted. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being too harsh. If I should have tried to handle this privately first. Rachel. She confessed to a federal crime at a dinner table and laughed about it. There is no handling that privately. And even if you'd tried, what would that have looked like? You asking nicely for her to turn herself in? Her promising to pay you back? This needed official intervention. I knew he was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are very different things. Week 3 brought a new development. Rebecca hired a lawyer, a criminal defense attorney named Gerald Shapiro, who apparently specialized in white-collar crime cases. I knew this because Mom sent me a triumphant email with the subject line, Rebecca has real legal representation now. The body of the email was worse. Mr. Shapiro says you've overreacted and that any reasonable person would have handled this within the family. He's going to make sure the judge knows you're pursuing this case out of jealousy and sibling rivalry, not actual harm. You've made a huge mistake, Rachel. This is going to backfire spectacularly. I forwarded it to Agent Williams without comment. She called me an hour later. Don't engage. Your mother is trying to intimidate you. Shapiro is doing his job, which is defending his client. None of this changes the facts of the case. She said he's going to claim. I'm doing this out of jealousy. Let him try. You're an FBI agent with an impeccable record who reported a crime that was confessed to in front of witnesses. The evidence speaks for itself. 2 days later, Shapiro filed a motion to dismiss based on familial privilege and lack of criminal intent. The motion was denied within 48 hours. The judge's written opinion was scathing. Identity theft is a serious federal offense regardless of the familial relationship between perpetrator and victim. The defendant's admission that she knowingly used her sister's identity without permission to fraudulently obtain financial services demonstrates clear criminal intent. Motion denied. Mom called from a different number, I've forgotten to block all of them, and screamed at me for 10 minutes about how I was destroying Rebecca's life and making a mockery of justice. I hung up and blocked that number too. Week 5, the U.S. Attorney's Office formally filed charges. 2 counts of identity theft. 1 count of wire fraud. 1 count of making false statements to a financial institution. Maximum potential sentence, 20 years in federal prison. I knew Rebecca wouldn't get 20 years. First-time offender, non-violent crime, relatively small dollar amount. She'd likely get probation and restitution if she took a plea deal. But the possibility was there. On paper, official. The arraignment was scheduled for the following Monday. I wasn't required to attend, but I wanted to. I needed to see this through. Marcus offered to come with me. I accepted gratefully. The courthouse was cold that morning. Early December in Virginia, the kind of gray day that makes everything feel heavy. I wore my professional attire dark suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. I looked exactly like what I was, a federal agent attending a court proceeding. Mom and Dad were there. Rebecca was there with Shapiro, looking pale and thin. She'd lost weight, dark circles under her eyes. When she saw me walk in, her face contorted with rage and grief. Mom just glared, Dad looked away. The arraignment itself was quick. Rebecca stood before the judge, Shapiro beside her. The charges were read aloud. Rebecca pled not guilty on advice of counsel. The judge set bail at $50,000. Mom gasped audibly. Dad's face went gray. Your Honor, Shapiro interjected smoothly, my client is not a flight risk. She has deep family ties to the community, no prior criminal record. Your client used her sister's identity to commit fraud, the judge interrupted. That demonstrates a willingness to deceive and manipulate. Bail is set at $50,000, cash or bond. Next case. The gavel came down. Rebecca started crying. Mom immediately moved to comfort her, shooting me a look of pure hatred over Rebecca's shoulder. They posted bail by that afternoon. I found out later that Mom and Dad liquidated their savings account to cover it. That night, Dad called me. Not Mom, just Dad. Hello? I answered cautiously. It's me. His voice sounded exhausted. I'm calling without your mother knowing, okay? Rachel, I need you to understand something. He took a shaky breath. I don't agree with what you've done. I don't understand it. That's my daughter in there, facing federal charges, and you put her there. My throat tightened. Dad, but, he continued, I've been thinking a lot these past few weeks. About Rebecca. About how he raised you girls. About the choices your mother and I made. I waited. We did fail you, he said quietly. Your mother especially, but me too. I let her prioritize Rebecca. I let her dismiss your accomplishments. I stood by while she made you feel less important, less loved. I told myself it wasn't that bad, that you were strong enough to handle it. But that was cowardly. I couldn't speak. Tears were burning behind my eyes. Rebecca is spoiled, Dad said, his voice cracking slightly. She's manipulative and entitled, and she's never faced real consequences for anything because we always bailed her out. I see that now. I've been seeing it for years, if I'm honest, but I didn't want to admit it. Dad, I'm not saying I support what you've done, he clarified. I'm still struggling with that. She's my daughter, but I'm starting to understand why you did it. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry we made you feel like you had to prove yourself. I'm sorry we never protected you the way we protected her. A tear slipped down my cheek. Thank you. Your mother won't forgive you, he said sadly. Maybe not ever. And I don't know if I can either, not completely. But I want you to know that I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm sorry. We talked for a few more minutes. He told me he'd opened a separate bank account that Mom didn't know about, that he was putting money aside, that he was thinking about things. I didn't push. It was enough that he'd called. After we hung up, I cried for 20 minutes straight. Marcus held me, didn't say anything, just let me get it out. Week 7 brought the plea negotiation. Shapiro reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office with an offer. Rebecca would plead guilty to 1 count of identity theft in exchange for dropping the wire fraud and false statements charges. The recommended sentence would be 2 years probation, 500 hours of community service, and full restitution to me for any costs or damages incurred. Also, a formal public apology. The U.S. attorney called me to discuss it. It's a reasonable offer. She'd have a federal conviction on her record, which is serious, but no jail time. What do you think? Will she actually follow through? I asked. Or will my family find a way to minimize this too? Federal probation isn't something you can wiggle out of, she said firmly. She violates the terms, she goes to prison. There's no parental bailout for that. I thought about it. 2 years of Rebecca having to check in with a probation officer, having to complete community service, having to face real oversight. 2 years of consequences she couldn't charm or manipulate her way out of. I want the restitution and apology in writing, I said. Official. Part of the court record. Done. The plea deal was formalized 3 days later. Rebecca signed it. She didn't have much choice. The evidence against her was overwhelming, and taking it to trial would only result in a harsher sentence. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for 2 weeks before Christmas. In the days leading up to sentencing, something shifted in my family. I heard through Aunt Linda that Mom and Rebecca had a massive fight, screaming, crying, the whole thing. Rebecca had apparently demanded that Mom pay for an appeal, try to overturn the plea deal, something. Mom had refused. Not because she'd suddenly developed principles, but because they were broke. The bail money had wiped out their savings. Shapiro's fees had required them to take out a loan. They had nothing left to give. Rebecca felt betrayed. After everything I've been through because of Rachel, you won't even help me? Mom felt attacked. I've given you everything. I've spent 50 years putting you first. And now you're blaming me? Their codependent relationship was finally cracking under the pressure of real consequences. Dad, meanwhile, had apparently started going to therapy. Individual therapy without telling Mom. Aunt Linda told me all of this with a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Your father is finally waking up. Took a federal case to do it, but better late than never. The sentencing hearing was December 18th. Cold and clear, the kind of winter day that makes everything look sharp-edged. I wore the same professional suit. Marcus came with me again. This time, Aunt Linda came too. The courtroom was more crowded than I expected. Mom, Dad, Rebecca, Shapiro, but also several other people I didn't recognize. Friends of Rebecca's maybe, or curious onlookers. Judge Catherine Brennan presided. She was in her late 50s, with a reputation for being fair but firm. She read the terms of the plea deal aloud. Then she looked at Rebecca. Miss Morrison, you have pled guilty to identity theft. Before I accept this plea and impose sentence, do you have anything you'd like to say? Shapiro whispered something to Rebecca. She nodded, stood up slowly. Your Honor, I want to say that I'm sorry. Her voice was quiet, shaky. I made a terrible mistake. I hurt my sister, and I betrayed her trust. I let my own vanity and poor judgment cloud my thinking, and I take full responsibility for what I did. It sounded rehearsed, it probably was, but it was something. Judge Brennan nodded. And Ms. Rachel Morrison, the victim in this case, is present. Would you like to make a statement? I hadn't prepared anything, hadn't planned to speak. I stood up anyway. Your Honor, I'd like to say something. Proceed. I looked at Rebecca, really looked at her. At this person I'd shared a womb with, shared a childhood with, shared a face with, this person who'd stolen from me and laughed about it. I didn't want this, I said quietly. I didn't want to report my own sister. I didn't want to tear my family apart. But I also couldn't ignore a crime just because it was convenient or comfortable to do so. My job requires integrity. My life requires integrity. And I hope that through this process, my sister learns that actions have consequences. That we're all accountable to the same laws, the same standards. That being family doesn't mean you get to hurt people without repercussions. I sat down. My hands were shaking. Judge Brennan studied both of us for a long moment. Ms. Rebecca Morrison, she said finally, I'm accepting your guilty plea. I'm sentencing you to 2 years supervised probation, 500 hours of community service to be completed within 18 months, and full restitution to your sister for all costs associated with this case, including credit monitoring and legal consultation fees. She paused. I'm also ordering you to write a formal letter of apology to be submitted to this court and to your sister within 30 days. Not a legal document written by your attorney, but a personal letter in your own words taking responsibility for what you've done. Rebecca nodded, tears streaming down her face. Furthermore, Judge Brennan continued, I want to be clear about something. You're fortunate that your sister is a person of integrity who believes in the justice system. A less principled person might have sought personal revenge. Instead, she reported your crime through proper channels and allowed the legal process to unfold. You should be grateful for that. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Rebecca whispered. Good. This court is adjourned, the gavel came down, it was over. Outside the courthouse, Mom tried to approach me. Rachel, please, can we just... No, I said firmly. Not now, not yet. She's your sister, Mom said, her voice breaking. When are you going to forgive her? I looked at my mother. At the woman who'd spent 31 years teaching me that I was less important, less valuable, less loved than my twin. When she earns it, I said simply, and maybe not even then, that's my choice to make, not yours. I walked away. Marcus and Aunt Linda flanked me like bodyguards. Behind me, I heard Mom start to cry. I heard Dad trying to comfort her. I kept walking. That night, Marcus and I sat in my apartment with Chinese food and cheap wine. How are you feeling? He asked. Tired, I admitted. Relieved, sad, angry, all of it. That's normal, is it? I just got my twin sister convicted of a federal crime. I don't think there's a normal for this. Marcus set down his wine glass, took my hand. You did the right thing, Rachel. And I know that doesn't make it hurt less. I know your family made you feel like the villain, but history is going to prove you right. Rebecca needed this. She needed real consequences. Maybe this will be the wake-up call that changes her life. Or maybe she'll just resent me forever. Maybe, he agreed. But that's not your responsibility. You're not required to set yourself on fire to keep anyone warm. Not even family. I'd said almost the exact same words to my father weeks ago. Hearing them reflected back at me felt surreal. I think I need some time, I said quietly. Away from all of them. Some distance to figure out what I want my life to look like without constantly dealing with their drama? That sounds healthy. I might not reconcile with them, I admitted. With any of them. Not for a long time, maybe not ever. That's okay too, Marcus said gently. You get to decide what relationships are worth maintaining. Blood doesn't obligate you to accept abuse or manipulation. I leaned against him. Exhausted and hollowed out, but also, strangely, lighter than I'd felt in years. The weight of family expectation, of being the less loved twin, of constantly trying to prove my worth, it was starting to lift. I'd stood up for myself. I'd enforced boundaries. I'd held someone accountable even when it cost me everything. And I was still standing. 3 weeks later, 2 days before Christmas, a letter arrived at my apartment. Handwritten, Rebecca's handwriting. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside, 3 pages. Messy cursive, crossed out words, obvious emotional distress in every line. It started, Rachel, I don't know if you'll even read this, but Judge Brennan said I had to write it, so here it is. Not exactly a promising opening, but I kept reading. And somewhere around page 2, something shifted. The defensive tone faded. The anger dissolved. What remained was something raw, more honest than I'd ever heard from Rebecca. I've spent my whole life competing with you, and I don't even know why. You were always smarter, more disciplined, more accomplished. And instead of being proud of you, I resented you. I wanted to be special, and it was easier to be pretty and dramatic than to be smart and hardworking like you. Mom made it easy. She praised me for things that didn't matter and ignored your achievements. And I let her. I encouraged it. Because it felt good to finally be the favorite at something. But somewhere along the way, I started believing that I deserved things without earning them. That rules didn't apply to me. That I could take shortcuts because I was pretty enough or charming enough to get away with it. Using your identity was the worst thing I've ever done. Not just because it was illegal, but because it was you. My twin, my sister. The person who should have been my biggest ally, and instead I treated you like a resource to exploit. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. I don't know if I'd forgive me, but I'm sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not just because I got caught, but because I hurt you, and you deserved so much better from me. The letter ended with, I'm going to do the community service. I'm going to pay you back. I'm going to finish probation. And then I'm going to figure out who I am without Mom making excuses for me. I don't know who that person is yet, but I hope she's better than who I've been. Rebecca, I read it 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to respond. Maybe I wouldn't ever be ready. But it was something. A crack in the armor. A glimpse of self-awareness. Maybe not enough, but a start. 6 months passed. I didn't respond to Rebecca's letter. I didn't reach out to Mom. I saw Dad twice, brief coffee meetings where we talked carefully around the big topics, sticking to safe ground. He was still in therapy, still figuring things out. I respected that. Marcus and I got engaged in March. A quiet proposal in my apartment, no fanfare, just the 2 of us and a simple ring. We told my family through Aunt Linda. Mom didn't respond. Dad sent a card with a check and a note that said, "Congratulations. I wish I could be there to celebrate properly." Rebecca sent a text. "Congratulations. He's lucky to have you." 3 words, but they felt genuine. Work continued. I got the promotion to supervisory special agent in April. My team threw me a small party. I felt proud, accomplished. Like I'd finally built something that was entirely mine. In May, I received notification that Rebecca had completed her community service hours. All 500 of them, working at a women's shelter and a food bank. Her probation officer's report noted that she'd been punctual, cooperative, and genuinely engaged with the work. The restitution payments came monthly, on time. Never late. Small amounts. She was working as a waitress now, living in a studio apartment, driving a 10-year-old Honda. Her Instagram, which I occasionally checked from a fake account, showed a quieter life. Fewer selfies, more pictures of books, sunsets, the shelter cats she'd apparently started fostering. She looked different, softer somehow, less performative. I didn't know if it was real or another manipulation. I wasn't ready to find out. In July, Aunt Linda called with news. Your mother and father are separating. I almost dropped my phone. What? Your father finally had enough. He's been in therapy for months, working through everything. He realized he's spent 3 decades enabling your mother's toxic behavior, and he doesn't want to do it anymore. He moved out last week. How's Mom handling it? Aunt Linda laughed bitterly. Not well. She's convinced this is all your fault, that the stress of what you did to Rebecca destroyed their marriage. She's not taking any responsibility. Of course not. Your father asked me to tell you he'd like to see you. Really see you, not just coffee. He wants to try to rebuild a relationship. On your terms. I considered that. Tell him I'll think about it. August brought an unexpected visitor. Rebecca showed up at my apartment on a Saturday morning. I saw her through the peephole and froze. She looked thinner, hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup, jeans and a t-shirt from the women's shelter where she'd done her community service. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. Hi, she said quietly. Hi, I finished probation yesterday. Officially. It's over. Congratulations. We stood there awkwardly. 2 identical faces, 2 completely different lives. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, Rebecca said finally. I know I don't deserve it, but I wanted to tell you something in person. I waited. You were right, she said, her voice cracking slightly. About everything. About me being spoiled. About needing consequences. About Mom enabling me. The past 6 months have been the hardest of my life, but they've also been the most honest. She took a shaky breath. I've been in therapy too, working through a lot of stuff. And I realized that I've spent my entire life trying to be the pretty twin because I was scared I couldn't be anything else. Being beautiful was easy. Being good required work I didn't think I could do. And now? I asked quietly. Now I'm trying to figure out who I am when I'm not performing for approval. It's terrifying. But it's also the first time I've felt real in years. She looked at me with something that might have been hope. I'm not asking you to let me back into your life. I just wanted you to know that what you did, holding me accountable, it saved me. I know it doesn't feel like that, but it did. I felt something crack in my chest. Not forgiveness, exactly, but maybe the beginning of understanding. I can't forget what you did, I said carefully. And I can't promise we'll ever be close again. But I'm glad you're getting help. I'm glad you're trying, Rebecca nodded, tears spilling over. Tears spilling over. That's more than I deserve. Thank you. She turned to leave, then paused. Mom's never going to change, you know. She's doubling down on being the victim in all this. But Dad's different. He's really trying. If you can find it in yourself to give him a chance, I think it'd be good for you to have in your life. I'll think about it. Okay. She wiped her eyes. Congratulations on your engagement. And your promotion. You deserve all of it. Then she was gone. I called Dad that night. I'd like to have dinner, I said. A real dinner. Where we talk about actual things, his voice cracked. I'd really like that, sweetheart. We met the following week at a quiet restaurant. He looked older but somehow lighter, like he'd put down a weight he'd been carrying for decades. We talked for 3 hours. About his therapy, his separation from Mom, his regrets. He apologized, really apologized, for years of standing by while I was treated as less important. He cried, I cried. I'm proud of you, he said finally. I should have said it more. I should have shown it better. But I'm so incredibly proud of the woman you've become. It wasn't everything. It didn't erase the past. But it was enough to start building something new. Marcus and I got married in October. Small ceremony, close friends, Aunt Linda and Dad in attendance. Mom wasn't invited, Rebecca wasn't invited. It felt right, peaceful, like I was finally choosing my own family instead of being obligated to one by blood. My career flourished. My marriage was strong. I had friends, purpose, a life I'd built through integrity and hard work. Sometimes I still thought about that dinner at Mom's house, about Rebecca's smug face, about the moment I picked up my phone and chose truth over convenience. People asked if I regretted it, if I wished I'd handled it differently. The answer was always no. Rebecca committed a crime. I reported it. The system worked. She faced consequences, learned accountability, and maybe, just maybe, became a better person because of it. And I learned that I didn't have to set myself on fire to keep anyone warm, not even family. A year after the sentencing, I received a final letter from Rebecca. I wanted you to know that I got accepted to community college. Starting in January. I'm going to study social work. The shelter where I volunteered offered me a part-time job. I'm building something real, something that matters, something I actually earned. You taught me that was possible. Not by being nice, but by refusing to let me get away with being less than I could be. I don't know if we'll ever be sisters again the way we were supposed to be. But I hope someday we can at least be two people who respect each other. Thank you for not giving up on the idea that I could be better, even when I'd given up on myself. Or I put the letter in the drawer with the first one. Maybe someday I'd respond. Maybe someday we'd find a way back to something resembling a relationship. But for now, I had my own life to live. A life built on principles, not convenience. On integrity, not obligation. I'd chosen myself. And I'd do it again.